Hello everyone, welcome back to English with Aisha Siddiqui. I hope you all are fit and healthy. So we are on the topic of second year BA students, and we are doing the theory of poetry. That is the first part. I'll again show you all the books that I'm referring. The book that I'm referring to is this one, and we are going to do the topic of objective correlative in it. What do you mean by objective correlative? And the poet or the critic in it. What do you mean by a critic? And who is a critic? So I'll start my screen sharing. So here you all can see T.S. Eliot. It's also given in your book if you all are referring to T.S. Eliot as a critic and his objective correlative. Now, he is a critic and what he has to say about objective correlative. Who is a critic now? Um, a critic, a person who judges the merits of literary works, especially one who does so professionally. Critics are publicly accepted and to a significant degree followed because of the quality of their assessments or their reputation. Critics are people who evaluate a piece of writing on base of merits and do so to bring positive changes. They try to highlight different aspects of a writer's piece of writing. So, in normal words, a critic is a person or a teacher, if you can say, who is going to, or a supervisor who is going to correct your answer sheets. So, critic in poetry is just the same. It critic is publicly accepted. That means they publicly correct the poetries, the writings, the literary writings, and for a positive change to bring good changes in the poetry where it is needed. Now let's see who is T.S. Eliot. Born in September 26, 1888 to January 4th, 1965. He was an American-born British poet, essayist, literary critic, dramatist, publisher, and editor. So he did all of these roles. Eliot is one of the greatest literary critics of England from the point of view of his critical writings. His 500 essays, occasionally published as reviews and articles, had a far reaching influence on the literary criticism in the country. His criticism was revolutionary, which inverted the critical tradition of the whole English speaking world. So, by this, you will understand he was a great critic and he was one of the greatest literary critics of England because of his critical writing. And he had 500 essays, so many essays that he published, all his reviews, his articles, very well known, up to date. It is very well known, and you can find it on Google. So, and he actually changed and inverted the new tradition of English speaking. Then Eliot devised numerous critical concepts that gained wide popularity and has a broad influence on criticism. Objective correlative. Now, what is objective correlative? He gained a wide popularity and had a broad influence on criticism. So he had more and more influence on criticism and he removed the topic of objective correlative. Dissociation of sensibility, unification of sensibility are few of Eliot's works hotly debated by critics. So, on his work, there are debates that the critics do. His comments on the nature of poetic drama and the relation between poetry and drama have done much to bring about a revival of poetic drama in the modern age. Even if he had written no poetry, he would have made his mark as a distinguished and subtle critic. Shrewd, you can say. Why the word shrewd is used here? Because he has actually corrected a lot and lot of poetry and writings. wherein he removed a lot of problems from the poetry for a positive way, but maybe people took it in a very different way, because his way of removing all and bringing out all the criticism maybe was a little more shrewd. That's why he's known as shrewd. Even though if he did not write poetries, they are saying that he would be still very famous because of his criticism. Eliot's views on the nature of poetic process are equally revolutionary. According to him, poetry is not inspiration, it's an organization. So he's saying it's not only to inspire people, it is a great organization. It's one whole organization. The poet's mind is like a vessel in which are stored numerous feelings, emotions, and experiences. So he is explaining how a poet's mind is. It is full of numerous feelings, emotions, experiences. The poetic process fuses these distinct experiences and emotions into new wholes. In his most famous critical essay, that is Tradition and the Individual Talent, Eliot argues that the art must be understood not in a vacuum, but in the context of previous pieces of art. Eliot himself employed his concept on many of his works, especially on his long poem, The Waste Land. So, the most famous essay, that is tradition and individual talent. He removed and he brought a lot of criticism in this, and he actually told the right way that it should be revealed. That is using it should not be understood in a vacuum. And he also allowed his own poetries to be criticized and to be corrected by people, especially the long poem that is Wasteland. As a critic, Eliot has his faults. So, of course, everyone has faults in them. Even though if they're very great and best in their work, they will have or they will falter here and there. So, faltering is not a problem. Everyone falters. Often, his criticism is spoiled by personal and religious prejudices, blocking and sorry blocking an honest and impartial estimate. So most of his criticism was actually people thought that it was on religious prejudices and blocking an honest and impartial estimate. Moreover, he does not judge all by the same standards. So people said that he was not judging everyone on the same standards, he was judging them according to religious prejudices and etc. With the passing of time, his critical faculties were increasingly exercised on social problems. Critics have also found fault with his style as too full of doubts, reservations, and qualifications. So later on, other critics actually found faults in his style and his doubts, his qualifications, etc. Now, what do you mean by objective correlative? The theory of objective correlative is one of the most critical concepts of T.S. Eliot. So, this is one of the main thing that he has done. It exerted a tremendous influence on the critical temper of 20th century. In the concept of the objective correlative, Eliot's doctrine of poetic impersonality finds its most classic formulation. Eliot himself defines objective correlative as a set of objectives, a situation, a chain of events, which shall be the formula for the poet's emotions, so that when the external facts are given, the emotion is at once evoked. So he defines objective relative as a set of objects. So he does not say that it's a problem, but he says there are some objectives to be overcome by a chain of events and by a formula. That means by planning. Now, according to Eliot, the poet cannot communicate only his emotions directly to the reader. He has to find object suggestive of it, and only then he can evoke the same emotion in his reader. Now, according to him, he says that anyone cannot directly bring out any emotions in who for the person who's reading. But what he has to do, he has to bring out an object where he can relate and bring all the emotions. So, this objective correlative is a set of objects, a situation, or a chain of events, which shall be the formula for the particular emotion. So, he removed a chain of events, the objectives, that is the objects through which poets should remove a particular emotion, such that when the external facts which must terminate in sensory experience are given, the emotion is immediately evoked. Like Aristotle, Iliad is one of the opinion that it is not the business of the poet to say, but to show. So he feels that the poets should not only speak and speak and speak, they should actually show their emotions by some object. What is that object? Objective of correlation. So there should be some relation that the reader should actually relate, such as I said that in songs, right? We relate to the meaning of the song, and that is how we like that song. So according to him, he said that the poets cannot directly just speak out, but they should show according to the object, not to present but to represent. In other words, Ely's concept of the objective correlative is based on the notion that it is not the business of the poet to present his emotions directly, but rather to represent them indirectly through an object, that is, objective correlative, which becomes the formula for the poet's original emotions. On one of the reasons why Eliot admires Dante's poetry is that Dante's Dante was a visual imagination, because he attempted to make us see what he saw. So he did not only speak that what he saw. So if I am telling you, or anyone who comes and tells you some event, that you know what happened that day, this happened, that happened, they just start speaking and you get bored listening to them, right? But if they show it in a very creative way, it was beautiful and they express their emotions through some object. That is how you can connect to them and you can see what they saw. I can actually feel, because he did not lose his grasp of over the objective correlative. So Eliot actually emphasized a lot on objective correlative. He said that emotion should be not directly spoken about, but it should be shown by some objects. If the writer or the poets or playwriters want to create an emotional scene in the audience, or an emotional reaction in the audience, they must find a combination of images, objects, or description evoking the appropriate emotion. The source of the emotional reaction isn't in one particular object, one particular image, or one particular word. Instead, the emotion originates from a combination of these phenomena when they appear together. So he says that it does not mean that only one object should be used for one emotion. There can be hundreds of objects and emotions, and people come together to just show one whole emotion. So here you can see, I'll just give you an example of this emotional reaction. Everyone has watched the movie, Kabhi Khushi Kabhi Gum, right? In which Shah Rukh Khan and Jaya Bachchan is having a emotional, very emotional scene, right? That they're meeting in a mall after years and years. So the son and the mother is meeting. It's a very emotional scene. But to invoke those emotions, not only Jaya Bachchan and Shah Rukh Khan, I mean, not only the mother and the son is shown, but there are many more characters displayed at the very same time to describe that emotion, right? You can see Kajol and his little son at the side. You can see the main act, I mean, Amitabh Bachchan and Kajol going to him, right? And Kareena Kapoor. There are so many actors just connected to them. Why am I taking all these names and why am I explaining you all through the movie? Because I mean, you all can relate to it, you all can understand through it. So it's a small example that I'm giving. Do not think that I'm just promoting movies, but this is a way where I can explain you all through examples. So it's the same thing what T.S. Eliot has actually shown. What do you mean by objective correlation? That means you have to use several objects to remove that one emotion. One emotion of a mother and a son that are coming together after years is being shown, but not only two of them is shown. There are so many characters just connected to them that they are shown. So he has used so many characters when directing that movie. Similarly, for a poetry, to remove one emotion, the poet does not need to only speak about that emotion, but he should use many more objects and emotions to just express the feeling or that emotion. In short, only this is the whole thing that T.S. Eliot wants to say, and he has criticized many more poetries on the basis of objective correlation or correlative. So this is what objective correlative is. Later on, he introduced all the objectives wherein the poets can grasp these objectives and use it in the poetry. I hope you all understood by this last example that I gave it through a movie. I'm so sorry that I'm referring through a movie to show you all, but I think it's the simplest way because most common thing everyone must have watched it. So I'm using this example. If you like the video and you understood it through these examples, give it a thumbs up and do watch all other videos for benefiting yourself. Thank you.